Good afternoon. I'm Librarian Racine.
I'm Librarian Sarah.
And we're here today with another edition of ICTBC, Wichita Public Library's virtual book club. Thanks for joining us. Our book today is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs.
Correct. And bear with us, we're trying a couple new things with our setup. As you can see, we have the lovely children's room behind us. We're testing out a few things, and we can't see ourselves like we normally can, so just letting you know, but we will see your comments as they come in, so please do comment along with us. We are happy to have you with us today.
Well, and the other thing too, if you comment, put hashtag ICTBC, and we'll send a lovely Wichita Public Library mug to you, to your branch. And we'd love to hear your comments. So
yeah, we would love that. Now, we do have to limit it to those in Wichita, so if you are joining us, you have to be able to pick it up at one of our library branches.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty cool mug, and I would like to drink coffee out of it. So
well, tis the season for hot beverages, so
I'm going to make sure we keep ourselves at our time. And okay, so yeah, we're discussing Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And just to give you a little summary, it is about a young boy who, he's like 14, 15, 16? Somewhere in there, angsty, kind of trying to find his place in the world, kind of a loner. He is very close with his grandfather. His parents are kind of distant. They have a lot of money, and unfortunately they work all the time. And so he finds solidarity with his grandfather, who is an immigrant from Poland, escaped during World War II, and had to fight off the monsters. That's where we're going to talk a lot about that later, is the monsters. And so as a child, Jacob thinks that this is his, they're kind of fairy tales where monsters and magical children, and they all get to do these peculiar things. But then he grows up, he thinks maybe monsters means the Nazis in World War II, but he's kind of confused. And then he witnesses his grandfather dying, which is very traumatic. As it would be, but it was a violent death, unfortunately. So, spoiler, but it happens in the beginning, so it's not really that much of a spoiler. Anyway, and so he decides that his way of healing from that is to uncover his grandfather's past, and to try to go and see what truth he can find in these stories that he grew up listening to, in these fairy tales, which takes him to Wales, where he uncovers Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. It's hidden away. It's in this big house in this very remote island. He actually has to travel back in time to get to it. So it's there's this fantasy element, there's this coming of age, they throw in some love interest, there's this weird triangle that spans time.
it's mystery.
Yeah, it's mystery.
It's a horror
book. So it's
there's so many different elements that go into this book.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of the interesting part of it.
And the whole kind of shtick with this book is that Mr. Riggs uses imagery. He uses really cool, can you see me when I point up my book? Oh, there's a delay.
Oh, wait.
Well, he uses these pictures that he found imagery, went to some different collectors. They collected these things from flea markets, from just random places. And so they are old images that have not been altered, but they're kind of creepy. Like, there's some where the eyes are kind of whited out. There's the one that we use on the front cover where this is actually one of the characters. She levitates. And so it's really interesting how he uses these photographs to develop and tell his story. What did you think?
And that's the thing. We started debating about it, because if you look at some of these photos, it looks like they're computer, or they're manipulated like a computer. But really, back in the day when I studied photography, you could do these things through darkroom techniques and double exposures, and it's one of those things where it's like, I think that those were found images with no, editing as far as, it looks like another face has been put in, and that
Like
they
double
did
exposure.
right. But I mean, that was really when you were a kid, and if you were studying in a dark room setting, that was like one of the first things. Oh, cool! I get to like make this person's head disappear or be white, you know. And that was. So I think those are all unaltered from that standpoint.
And he lists them out in the back of the book where they came from. He used primarily 10 collectors to get all these photos together. And it's just, it's really interesting how he uses language and pictures, these found photography to tell a story. Like, he developed characters based on these images that he found. So it's pretty cool. Do we have any comments yet?
No, not yet. But one thing that I wanted to talk about, you were talking about Jacob, the protagonist. He's a teenager.
Yes.
I really liked him as a character.
I did too.
Because he was so... It's funny, I'm using Harry Potter as my standard here. Because Harry Potter was... Well, I think Harry Potter in the later on books, as he hits teenage, he was annoying.
As I read through Harry Potter again, not to jump ship here, but it's a very dark character. I mean, he goes through a lot. But
Jacob, he's a lot more likable. I
Harry
thought that
Potter?
Harry Potter turned kind of unlikable.
Sacrilege.
I know. Well, he was a teenager.
No,
you know,
it's okay.
And sometimes the author has to go there, but I really liked Jacob as a character.
Well, he had the
and with
right...
his
Sorry.
funky angstiness, it rang true.
I feel like he had the right mix of angst but like he obviously cared so much about his grandfather, and he's discovering love for the first time, and he had the right mix of all of these things that he did turn into quite the likable character. I mean, but he was very realistic, I thought.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't hang out with a whole lot of teenage boys, but from my experience growing up through that area, I thought it was very...
Yeah.
It rang true.
When his grandfather died.
Oh, gosh. It was...
And that rang true, too, because it was like, that would be so weird to have somebody you love die, but then also see such a horrific vision of the figure with the tentacles coming out of the mouth, and isn't there a picture in there of it?
Yeah, there's
and it was like, oh man, no.
They all think he's crazy because when his grandfather dies, he sees this creature, and it's spoiler alert if you wanna. But I think we pretty much spoiled a lot of. Well, not really.
No,
whatever.
Really.
Still read the book. It's so good.
Yeah.
But his grandfather. The police tell the story that he's been attacked by wild dogs, and that's the end of it, because that's the only reasonable explanation for something in our very cut and dry world. But actually, it's these creatures that are black like the night, and they have these dark eyes, and they have these tentacle tongues coming out of their mouth. And of course, Jacob talks about this to the police, and they all think he's crazy. So to appease him, they send in a police sketch artist here. And so, I mean, they're kind of creepy, but these are the creatures that we'll learn a lot more about later in the book. And Jacob's own particular peculiarity, all these children have peculiarities, is that he can see them where others can't. He can tell when the darkness is coming, when the monsters are coming, much like his grandfather who fought the monsters. Full circle.
Well, and you just said a key word in this book, monster. And the pictures of the peculiar children, they almost look monstrous.
Well,
and they're running. Jacob's running from the monsters.
Right.
The tentacle mouth guys.
Right.
What do you think this book has to say about monsters?
It's okay. So, like, on the grand scheme of things, I don't know, but the monster theme keeps popping up, right? So we've got these tentacle mouth monsters that are horrific and quite scary, and then we've got the Nazis, right? So the Nazis, that he was very willing to attribute his grandfather's monster stories to Nazis invading Poland, taking his family, his grandfather, the whole family was gone, and he's the only survivor. So he had a lot of trauma from that, as one would. And then we have these whites, right? W-I-G-H-T, not white like the color, that are also monsters, but they're kind of like, they collect children for the monsters. They have kind of a weird spin on the whole thing. But like you were saying, these children in their pictures, they're kind of creepy too. And Miss Peregrine explains that the peculiarities gene skips generations. So you would have families that would have these children that could, have bees coming out of them, or that were invisible or could float through the air. And they didn't know what to do with it. They thought their kids were monsters and dealt with them in a very middle-age type of way, which was probably to drown them in the river. So, it's not pleasant. But so then they're able to find this refuge in this house, which at the beginning of the book we also call a monster, because it's aged 60 years and it was actually hit by a bomb. And
so Jacob's coming up on this house in the middle of Wales, out nowhere, and it's decrepit and it's creepy. The description of the house was so creepy. It was hard to be like, okay, this is a nice welcoming place.
No, because there's walls falling down, there's trees growing up in the rooms. It's not a pretty idyllic house like he was expecting. He was expecting this home where his grandfather told him these stories of these magical, wonderful people, and he finds this house that looks like a monster in and of itself. So monsters keep popping up. Now, what that says about monsters and the grand scheme of things, like I said, I don't know, because I didn't read that deeply.
Well,
I just liked it as a story. But they pop up, and it's really interesting to see them run the full spectrum, the full spectrum of monster.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know why I think I'm getting this part in our book discussions, but I guess I always see kind of a deeper theme to the books.
Please explain it to me.
Well, that's just...
And to our followers.
If you were to ask me what's a deeper theme of this book, I would say it would be monsters and the nature of monstrosity.
Absolutely.
And you can look like a monster but not be a monster.
Like Frankenstein.
Like Frankenstein. Or...
Misunderstood.
Wicked.
Read-alike time.
This is, if you were to ask me, a read-alike, kind of, really thematically, Wicked, because here's this person who's green and strange, and people label her as, not right, and then it turns into wicked. She's wicked just because she's so different. So, and I think that's one of those same kind of things that's going on with Miss Peregrine's kids.
Right.
So
they're different.
I would say Wicked by Gregory Maguire. Actually, the musical's coming to Wichita again. Yay! So
I'm actually going to see it. I've never seen the musical.
Yeah. Well, and if you were to ask me about, what is this book like, I would say it's a very gothic book.
Yeah, absolutely. The horror elements, you cannot deny.
No.
There's a lot of it, and they go throughout the book. But it's got so much in it. I love it. And it is a young adult novel. I don't think we mentioned that. It is actually written for a more of a high school crowd, but I have talked to countless adults who have read it and really, really enjoyed it. And it's a series. It's the first one. There's actually 2 more that have come out. And have we mentioned that the movie is coming out later this month?
Okay, speaking of movie and atmosphere, Tim Burton is the perfect person to do this movie.
Absolutely.
However, all the promos that I've seen of it have seemed sunny and cheery, and it's almost like Willy Wonka-esque.
Huh.
And it's no, I want gritty, dark, Beetlejuicy kind of Tim Burton, or Batman, first Batman movie, Tim Burton. So that's what it needed. I don't know.
Okay, so
have you seen it?
The trailer?
Yeah, or the pictures. pictures from the movie that's coming out?
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's my thought. When I was reading this book, because I reread it, and when we're not in the loop, right? It's very dark and gray, and it's always raining, or we're having to climb through mud and bogs and mires. And then he gets to the house in the loop, and it's magical and wonderful, and there's topiaries, and there's children running around. Miss Peregrine is awesome. She sounds like the best headmistress in the whole world. And then he goes back out into real world, and it's boggy and miry and swampy and gross. And it reminded me of Wizard of Oz, right? In Kansas, not to speak poorly of our home state, but in Kansas, you know, it's gray and boring and gross, but it's home.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's home. We love it.
Yeah.
But in Oz, it's Technicolor. So I found the loop to be very much like Oz.
Well, and when he's going to the magical place,
yeah,
that's when things are bright and cool.
right.
Huh. Interesting. I wonder how he'll handle that in the.
So we'll see if there's something like that in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I'm not the only one that thought that. If you thought of that, please comment along with us, and make sure you use our hashtag ICTBC. I don't know why that gives me so much trouble. And you could win a very cool Wichita Public
You
Library
need a mug.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
We'll
love-
mug you.
Oh my God. Clever.
Let me just.
All right.
Oh. Okay.
Somebody from our team of the book discussion. Great. We love our team.
All right. Well.
Good. Well, so you can keep commenting along with us. We've got a little bit more time here to discuss. What else did you think?
Can I talk real quick about? I'm going to talk about the read-alikes.
Oh, okay.
Because, sorry, I didn't go for the obvious kind of gothic books
Mm-hmm.
because there were so many. I mean, there's so many gothic kinds of stories.
Can I
I
time out
guess.
for just real quick?
What?
So you keep saying gothic, but I don't. So yes, there's this giant horror element, right? It goes through the whole book. You've got monsters. Of course, you're going to have a horror element. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
like not Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
That one.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Right? Very,
That's what
very
yeah.
like, tongue with the tentacles.
Yeah.
But there's also this really sweet love story. I mean,
Well,
it's teenage
there's lots
romance.
of. Oh, okay.
And I thought it was really sweet, and maybe this just speaks to I like a cheesy romance. But
And I was focusing in on the dark elements of it.
I'm not
Maybe
sure what that
that's
says
what
about you.
I love cheery romance.
You do. It's all right.
Okay.
It's all right. But anyway, I just, this really does have quite a bit. And I feel like it's got that whole theme running through it. But at the same time, it's thriller, and it's got the love element, and it's got the family dynamics. I mean, this book just has a lot of stuff. So if you haven't read it, don't get stuck on the horror and think if that's not your bag, like power through. I think it's really good. Okay.
Well, and
please continue.
Okay, if you're talking about romance,
Yes.
this one has romance
Mm-hmm.
and demons and booze. It's
Oh.
Last Call at the Nightshade Lounge, and
I wouldn't know anything about that.
it's by Paul Kruger. I loved it. It was
Okay.
like a little frothy kind of paranormal romance, but it's the streets of Chicago, and this girl is in between college and her real job. Well, she becomes a barback and then learns this trade of battling demons through libations from the bartenders. It's
funny.
a
Is it
great
funny?
premise. Yeah, there's some funny parts too. I mean,
It's got a really great cover.
Yeah. So, Last Call at the Nightshade Lounge.
Okay.
I was thinking of YA and adult crossovers because really I thought this was an adult book.
Did
and
you?
when I was reading about this book, they didn't want to market it as a YA book, a young adult book, because they thought that the teenagers would be put off by the black and white cover of it.
Oh, that's very interesting.
If you were going to ask me what my favorite young adult crossover novel is, I would have to say it's Curious Incident of the Dog in Nighttime by Mark Haddon. Oh my gosh, it's a mystery, but it's told through the eyes of a boy who's autistic. and it is like the coolest protagonist ever. I think, you know, it's one of those books when you read it, it just kind of blows your socks off.
Yeah.
Because it's a perspective that you would have thought a book could be narrated from. So I really recommend this one, and it was a great, quick read. So
I think it won an award, didn't it?
Curious Incident of the Dog in Nighttime. Well, it was a Today Show book club selection.
It was on the bestseller list.
Award Schmord. You have to read
years.
it. It's great.
Tell me
Did you
more.
ever read Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore?
But it's on my list. My like ever expanding list.
Okay, your TBR.
Yeah, it's getting pretty
This
hot.
needs to go up to the top because
Okay.
Robin Sloan. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's this guy who starts working at this funky 24-hour bookstore, and there's strange things afoot, and so it's got that mystery element to it, and it's funny because it's almost like a book lover's book, because it is about the love of paper and the love of print, but then it also delves into why computers can complement that. And so I thought that was
Perfect. Well, for
you know,
life.
I was going to compare this to like The Darkness, or you know, the secret society kind of elements to Miss Peregrine. So all right, those
We've
are a
got
couple of read
minutes
alikes.
left. I want to know who your favorite peculiar child was. Or just, I guess it doesn't have to be a child.
Okay, thank you, because I liked Miss Peregrine. Miss Peregrine was the one I think that was my favorite character. Okay, I liked Jacob too.
Right.
And I think the reason why I was having problems connecting with the kids, the peculiar children, is because they're not children.
Right.
They're
like,
80 years old.
right, but they're in tiny little bodies because
There's
they're
a
stuck
time
in this
loop.
time loop.
You'll have to read the book to find out more. So,
We're not spoiling that one for you.
but so it was kind of, I thought it was kind of hard to, I mean, they were cool and it was interesting, and maybe it was like I was kind of closed-minded and not loving them more for being as unique as they are. Well,
You can have feelings about this. I give you that license. Have feelings.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, my favorite character, I think it might have been Millard. He's the invisible boy. He's just like, so kind of like the awkward teenager, but he's invisible, so like no one could really see his awkwardness. And he keeps track of everything that happens in town up to the very like exact second. And he knows, you know, this wheel cart's gonna go by at this point in time, and this guy's gonna cough into his left hand. And anyway, it's really, I felt some solidarity there with Millard. Who was your favorite character? You should probably comment on it and use the hashtag ICTBC so that you can win a super cool mug.
And thanks, Tamlin, for the comment about the,
Yeah.
it was kind of like an off read-alike list, because I don't like it when people are like, oh, this author writes exactly like this author. It's like sometimes you like themes of a book. You know, why read the same book over and over and over
That would
again?
get boring.
Yeah.
You'd be stuck in a loop.
You would be stuck in a loop. Yeah.
Oh,
Yuck, yuck,
Miss
yuck.
Peregrine humor. You can use that hashtag too if you want. Just kidding. You don't have to.
Real quick, we should talk about next month's book. When is it? October 12th?
14th?
Oh,
It's the second Wednesday of the month. Let me check that though while you're talking about it.
we're going to be reading the Wichita Public Library Big Read book, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It's a wonderful science fiction book. And
Can't find it. Sorry. It's not perfect.
anyways, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, and we have a special guest next month. Did you talk about that?
Denise Neal's
Nope.
going. No?
Suzanne Tobias. Different Eagle writer.
Sorry.
Suzanne Tobias.
Suzanne Tobias is going to be with us. So
She's the
tune
education
in.
correspondent, I believe, for the
Yeah.
Eagle. And so she is joining us for our discussion next month. We're really excited to have her. Not Denise Neal, but Denise Neal, you're welcome to join us next
Sorry,
time.
Denise, I've got lunch on the brain.
And we should have had her for Bright Kitchens.
Yeah, we should have.
Maybe we'll talk about another food item. Let's bring on the whole Wichita Eagle staff. But thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next month. We'll let you know what the time is. but second Wednesday at 12:30 over your lunch hour. I'm Sarah.
I'm Racine. Thanks for
And
joining us.
We'll see you next time.